My wife said I wasn't fighting for us, so I called her toxic friends and ended it for her. Yesterday, I watched my wife, Sarah, pack the last of her authentic life into a cardboard box while her phone buzzed incessantly with apologies from the very women who convinced her to burn our world down. 3 months ago, our kitchen was filled with the smell of home-cooked meals and the sound of us planning a trip to Italy. But that feels like a lifetime ago. It started slowly, with a girls' night out every Friday that turned into Saturdays and then 2 a.m. arrivals on Sundays. Sarah would walk through the door reeking of cheap Chardonnay and expensive bitterness, her eyes glassy and her words sharpened like knives. She wasn't coming home with stories of laughter, she was coming home with a manifesto. The architects of our demise were her tribe. Megan, the serial ghoster who hasn't held a relationship longer than a fiscal quarter. Chloe, who celebrates her divorce anniversary like a national holiday, and Elena, who lives in a studio apartment and spends her weekends documenting her freedom on Instagram while crying into a bowl of instant noodles. They told Sarah that marriage was a cage, a relic of the patriarchy designed to stifle her radiance. They told her that every time I asked what time she'd be home, I was controlling her. Every time I mentioned our budget, I was financially abusing her. I tried to fight for her at first. I booked a weekend getaway to the coast, but she spent the entire time texting Megan about how suffocating it was to be trapped in a luxury resort with a man who just wanted to hold her hand. I tried to suggest marriage counseling, and she laughed, saying Chloe told her that therapists are just paid to make women submit. By the second month, I stopped arguing. I stopped waiting up. I stopped asking for the affection that she was now reserving for her sisters. I became a ghost in my own house, watching the woman I loved turn into a puppet for 3 women who hated their own lives. Last night, the tension finally snapped. Sarah looked at me across the dinner table, a dinner I had cooked while she was on a 3-hour vent session with Elena, and she had the audacity to look disappointed. "You're not fighting for us anymore," she said, her voice dripping with that rehearsed, pseudo-intellectual condescension she'd picked up from the wine bars. "If you really loved me, you'd be fighting to save this. You're just giving up. It's like you don't even care about my growth." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just felt a cold, crystalline clarity settle over me. "You want me to fight, Sarah? You want to know why I've stopped?" I pulled out my phone. "Let's ask the experts." I dialed Megan first. She answered on the second ring, sounding giddy. "Hey Megan, it's Mark. Eve got a question. Sarah says she's miserable because I'm a stagnant force in her life. Since you're the one who told her she's wasting her prime years with me, do you think she should leave tonight or wait until the weekend?" Sarah's face drained of all color. She reached for the phone, but I put it on speaker. Megan stumbled over her words. "Well, Mark, it's not that simple. I was just saying that she has potential." "No, Megan," I interrupted. "You told her last Tuesday that married men are just leeches. So, is she better off without the leech? Be honest." "She's listening." There was a long, suffocating silence before Megan hung up. Next, I called Chloe. "Chloe, it's Mark. Sarah's crying right now because I'm not fighting for her. But you told her at brunch that divorce is the ultimate glow-up. I'm ready to give her that glow-up. Should I sign the papers tonight so she can be free like you?" Chloe's voice was small, stripped of the bravado she usually wore like cheap perfume. "Mark, don't be like that. We were just talking. It was just girl talk. I didn't mean for you guys to actually. I mean, Sarah loves you." "That's funny," I said, looking Sarah dead in the eye. "Because she told me you said I was a shackle. If I'm a shackle, I'm unlocking myself. Congratulations, Chloe, you won." I ended the call and turned to Elena. Elena didn't even pick up. I left a voicemail. "Hey, Elena, Sarah's coming over. She needs a place to stay since she's finally choosing her authentic truth over this prison we call a home. I assume she can crash on your sofa indefinitely, since you're so big on sisterhood?" The silence that followed in our living room was louder than any of the screaming matches we'd had in the weeks prior. Sarah was shaking. "Why would you do that? You're being cruel." "I'm not being cruel, Sarah. I'm being efficient," I told her, my voice as level as a horizon. "I'm giving you exactly what your advisors recommended. You've spent 90 days telling me how much better their lives are. But did you notice that Megan only calls you when she's lonely? Did you notice that Chloe's freedom consists of drinking herself into a stupor because she can't handle the silence of her apartment? Did you notice that Elena is 3 months behind on her rent because she spends all her money trying to look liberated for strangers on the internet? You traded a partner for a cheering section of failures. She started to sob, the kind of deep, ugly heaving that comes when a person realizes they've been sold a lie. They were just trying to help me find myself. No, I said, standing up. They were trying to pull you down into the pit with them. Misery doesn't just love company, it demands it. They couldn't stand seeing you happy, seeing us stable while they were drifting. So they poisoned your wine, and you drank every drop of it. You brought that poison home and poured it into our marriage until there was nothing left but rot. The aftermath was a spectacle of cowardice. Within an hour, the tribe began to scramble. My phone was flooded with texts. Megan sent a novel-length apology claiming she was going through a dark place and didn't mean to project. Chloe actually drove to our house, but she wouldn't come inside, she just sat in her car in the driveway, texting Sarah that she didn't want to be responsible for a breakup. They weren't afraid for Sarah. They were afraid for themselves. They liked the drama of Sarah's oppression. They liked being the wise gurus of her discontent. But the moment the fantasy became reality, the moment they realized Sarah would actually be on their doorstep, broken, and needing real support, they vanished like smoke. They wanted her to flirt with the edge of the cliff for their entertainment. They never actually wanted her to jump. But she did jump. And as I watched her sit on our floor, surrounded by the ghosts of our future, I realized the man who would have caught her was gone. That man had been eroded by 3 months of being told he was a villain. I looked at her and didn't see my wife anymore. I saw a stranger who had let 3 bitter women rewrite her heart. "They'll move out," she whispered, her eyes red and swollen. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "That's the thing about fire, Sarah," I replied, grabbing my jacket. "It doesn't care what you meant. It just burns. You wanted your truth. Now you have to live in it." I walked out and checked into a hotel. This morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls from her mother, her sisters, and even Megan. They're all singing the same tune now. "Don't do this. Give her another chance." She was just confused. But I'm not confused. I've never been more certain. I'm not just divorcing Sarah, I'm divorcing the toxicity she invited into our sanctuary. I'm sitting in a cafe now, watching the world go by. I feel lighter than I have in months. People ask if I'm sad, and I suppose I am, in a way. I'm mourning the woman Sarah used to be. But the woman she became? She's currently sitting in a house she can't afford, waiting for friends who won't show up, wondering how freedom managed to feel so much like a prison. The irony is almost poetic. She fought for her right to be miserable, and I finally decided to stop standing in her way. The papers were served 2 hours ago. Sarah called me, screaming, then begging, then screaming again. She told me I was proving them right, that I was discarding her. I told her I wasn't discarding her, I was just finally listening to her advice. She wanted to be like her friends. And now she is, alone, bitter, and wondering where it all went wrong, while the women who pushed her off the cliff watch from a safe distance, making sure none of the blood gets on their clothes.